Hi there, it's Tanker, and this here is the Nokia Lumia Icon for Verizon, also known as Lumia 929. This is my review, and I've had this for a couple of weeks, maybe a bit less. I've actually used it extensively for my entire time at South by Southwest recently, and so I have a lot to say. I really like this device. It's really one of my favorite Nokia phones. The only negative is the Verizon tie-in, obviously. You're stuck with Verizon. Well, I mean, the phone is unlocked like most Verizon phones. You can put another SIM in there, but you won't get any LTE. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a flagship-like device, very much like the 1520, but smaller. Basically, it is a 1520, but with a 5-inch screen, no micro SD card slot, and Verizon branding, and of course a slightly smaller battery. It does have wireless charging, which the US version of the 1520 lacks. As you know, the international version of the 1520 has wireless charging. And so that's it in a nutshell. Same everything else pretty much. So let me walk you through. First, you have a gorgeous display here. This is a AMOLED clear black display from Nokia with, of course, full HD, 1080 by 1920, 5-inch, super awesome. Look at these viewing angles, look at these black levels. This is one of the finest displays I've seen in a while. Of course, I'm still more of a fan of IPS, to be frank. It actually looks slightly better on camera right now. The purple in real life is way more saturated than what you see here, actually. I like to use purple as my default color on my white and black Windows Phone devices and match the color on the colorful ones. So, what else is there to say? It's Snapdragon 800, 32 gigs of built-in storage, 2 gigs of RAM. Let me quickly walk you through this device's features and details. You got a bunch of logos on front. Unfortunately, the very catastrophically ugly Verizon logo here. I really hope they change this one day. Earpiece, front-facing camera. You have a Nokia logo here. As you can see, the bezel is not very big everywhere around. This is probably the first Nokia with a pretty small bezel. Here are the 3 capacitive buttons at the bottom: back, Windows, and search keys. Very standard fare here in terms of look and feel for a Windows Phone device. But with this 1080p display, you have a lot more room for tiles, as you can see here. Three columns, which is kind of nice. In the back, you have more logos. Again, the ugliest sin Verizon logo, 4G LTE, like you need that really seriously today. We all know we're getting LTE. You have the speaker grill here, the Nokia logo, some details about the camera, Carl Zeiss, megapixel count. That awesome camera, 20 megapixel, autofocus, optical image stabilization, Carl Zeiss optics, pure view technology, dual LED flash. Phew. And that's it for the back. It's plastic. So you get NFC, you've got wireless charging, as I mentioned, which is standard on this phone. And but it gets interesting on the sides, because look at this edge here with these cool little details right there. So this is all aluminum all the way around, which is really cool. And it's got these bars, these plastic, kind of gray, translucent plastic bars that I guess act as antenna insulators, basically. So you got SIM tray right here. I'm not going to pull it. You can do it with your nail because it's going to restart the phone. But standard headphone jack, 3.5mm headset jack. Then, as you can see on the right-hand side, you get the usual assortment of buttons that you see on any Lumia. You get the volume rocker here, power lock key, and then, of course, dedicated dual to 10 camera button. Every phone should have this. I keep asking and wanting this on Android phones, and it's hard to find. The bottom here you have a micro USB charge and data port. Again, you can see the decoupling for the antennas. And then on the left hand side, it's completely bare. Nothing here but beautiful machined aluminum. So I really like this design. It's kind of squarish. It's much nicer than the Lumia 928 was last year for Verizon, also an exclusive. I wish this was not a Verizon phone, but a global flagship from Nokia, and I hope that they make one, and I hope that the industrial design is just as cool. So let's compare it to some existing phones, right? So of course, the flag bearer here, my favorite and my main phone, the Nexus 5 right here. As you can see, also a 5-inch 1080p display, but IPS. So, you know, let's bring up some icons. It's kind of hard to compare because Windows Phone is so colorful, but this is not the highest end IPS panel. I think the G2 is probably one of the best, if the HTC ones are really high end too. I still prefer IPS, but I have to say for AMOLED, this is one of the best I've seen in probably forever. So, you know, very similar, a bit bigger in size, but not by much. Again, both have wireless charging, both are Snapdragon 800, both have 1080p displays, both are flagships on their own right. If I flip them over, this is what they look like. Both have optical image stabilization on their cameras. As you very well know, Google still has a long way to go to get the image processing software to match what Nokia does, and I really hope they catch up. But this is a pretty decent camera. This obviously is a phenomenal camera. I don't need to explain, this is the same camera as the 1520 and really outstanding. If I stack them on top of each other for thickness, this is kind of what they look like. It's not a super thin phone, but the design makes it look thinner than it is because there's a bit of an edge here that rises in the bulge in the back. But really, it doesn't feel heavy or cumbersome or big at all. So the Nexus 5 is pretty thin. So, you know, all in all, can't complain here. Let's pick another phone to compare it with. Obviously, the 1520, right? So here's the Nokia 1520. And this is where you realize how massive the 1520 is. In fact, with my level of zoom right now on my NEX camera that I'm filming with this, you can't fit the whole phone in the screen. But as you can see, 3 columns, same resolution, 5 inches versus 6 inches, IPS versus AMOLED, both are awesome. Again, I really love the 1520, same camera, same processor. This particular model is AT&T's and lacks wireless charging, but it does have a micro SD card slot. So really the question is, can you handle the size, and do you want micro SD storage and wireless charging? These are the decision factors for picking one of these phones. Of course, the big decision factor is the carrier. Verizon versus AT&T. I'm not a fan of either of them. I'm a big T-Mobile person, so there you go. This is what they look like from the back, you know, very different. And then this is the Lumia 1020, which for a while was the flagship, really, which still has a better camera, but 4.5-inch IPS panel, quite a bit smaller. Doesn't have the Snapdragon 800, just essentially a dual-core S4, which is not really that great. You can really feel the difference in performance between these two that are running pretty much the same OS. If I flip them over, obviously very different. This is very much a camera phone with this gigantic camera pod, the 41 megapixel autofocus, optical image stabilized, Carl Zeiss mega lens. I mean, this is the mother of all camera phones right now, short of going to something like the Galaxy S4 Zoom with an actual point and shoot grafted in the back of the phone. It only has 20 megapixels, but it uses the same pure view technology. What that means is, first of all, it can store a raw picture like all high-end Lumias, so you can store a raw 20 megapixel shot and play with it later. But it also stores a 5 megapixel JPEG, which lets you do lossless zoom. So although you start with 20 megapixel, you can zoom in about twice and get some pretty awesome high quality zooms up to 2 times. Of course, on the 1020, which is 41 megapixel, you can zoom, I think, 3.5 or something like that times losslessly. And so there you go. Now let's have a look at them stacked on top of each other so you can see the difference in thickness. The main body of the 1020 is not that thick, right? But then you get that camera bulge that you can clearly see here. It's a pretty big phone, and it's not particularly lighter or anything. So basically that's the gist of it. The Lumia Icon here, Verizon exclusive in the US. I would consider this Nokia's flagship right now. I think the 1520 is just a little too big. Unfortunately, being a Verizon device, it's hard for me to recommend it unless you're a Verizon customer. I want to see this phone on, as a global model with LTE bands for T-Mobile and AT&T unlocked from Nokia, so that we can all enjoy it thoroughly. But again, this is a state of the art as far as Windows Phone goes. You can't go better than this. If this was an Android device, we would be creaming our pants. It'd be so good. Like, this is from point of view of hardware, again, Nokia blows it out the door. This is amazing, amazing stuff. Another thing I want to really touch on quickly, the battery life is really awesome on this phone. It's not as good as a 1520 because instead of a 3000 milliamp hour battery, it has a 2420 milliamp hour battery. But still, nonetheless, pretty damn good. You can definitely go a full day on a charge, but it's not as exciting as it's been on the 1520. So yeah. My blog is TancroMobile, tnkgrl.com. TNKGRL is also my Twitter handle. Follow me there. And I'll catch you next time with another phone. Cheers.